It's NXT versus TNA Showdown, not Invasion. Showdown happening. We're going to talk about the teams. We're going to talk about the matches and everything else. This is Wrestle. Yo, 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 this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my tag team partner, the man, say his name, he shall appear, the oracle, the wise man, the professor, that is Gerard Bonner. My guy, how has your week been? What's been going on?
Wow, it's been a very, very full week. A lot's been happening. I'll tell you about some of it at the end. But yeah, it's been a good time and a fun time in the wrestling space as we get ready for a showdown tonight.
Of course. Let's get straight into it. Showdown is NXT versus TNA. We know now of the teams on both the men's and the women's side in the Survivor Series style matches that we'll see. We know all the other matches that are happening as well on the night, including tag team versus tag team champions versus tag team champions, the Hardys, Dark State, winner takes all. We're also going to see something I predicted last week. Wow, it's actually happening. Ethan Page versus Mustafa Ali for the NXT North American Championship. We'll get into that as well. But let's kick off with the main events of this evening, which is the TNA team versus the NXT team, both men's and women's. Let's talk about the men's one first. We know the teams on both sides. With TNA, we've got Mike Santana, X Division champion Leon Slater, the new international champion Frankie Kazarian, and as well the franchise, which is Moose, and they'll be taking on the NXT team, which is the NXT champion Ricky Saints, the TNA world champion Trick Williams. Yes, I said TNA on the NXT side. Trick Williams, no one expected anything different, to be fair. As well as Javon Evans. And of course, I said of course, and I've completely forgotten his name, and I feel so bad. And oh my word, how have I forgotten his name? That is so bad. Oh, anyway. Yeah, even you've forgotten it. That says a lot.
A lot. Let me look and see. That does say a lot.
What a great start to the show.
This is a great start. A great start.
To the show.
Let's see. Let's figure out this team here. I'm looking for it. And I feel like I should have known this, but all right. The men's team. Oh, that's why we didn't remember it. Miles Bourne.
Oh man, it's Miles Bourne. Miles Bourne. We saw Miles Bourne having to obviously win a match in order to qualify for that team. My question to you, before we even get into the teams themselves, this whole thing of having matches on the night before selecting teams for NXT, but they're not seeing anything like that for TNA. Do you think that is an issue in any way? Do you feel it was a bit, maybe not so confusing, but could have been done better?
Well, I think this is, again, highlighting what we've seen as the issue with the NXT men's division. The NXT men's division, for as strong as the women's division is, the men's division is a bit challenging. Now, I do think that there probably should have been some competitions on the TNA side for somebody to qualify to get into those matches. But with that said, Miles Bourne, and I'm just thinking through the rest of the men's roster, for Miles Bourne to be the choice, I don't know. I think that could actually be a chink in the armor for the men's NXT team. because obviously you've got a world champion in Trick Williams. You got the NXT champion in Ricky Saints. It's very interesting that there's no Obafemi involved in this. Javon Evans, certainly the hottest guy right now on the NXT male roster. So it did leave that fourth slot wide open. Miles Bourne, I don't know. I mean, who else could have done it? I mean, there are probably a few other names. I think if this were a year ago, Wes Lee would have been the guy to be in that spot. It's so weird that we're having this conversation without mentioning Wes Lee. But it's kind of hard as you go through the rest of the NXT roster on the men's side, who should actually be in that particular spot. So maybe a Tavion Heights. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that a stronger candidate is the LFG season 1 winner. Maybe he would have been a better slot. I think he certainly would have been far more imposing as a figure. He'd have been a tougher figure to counteract a Moose or something of that regard. But I don't know. We'll obviously see tonight. But Miles Bourne, the fourth guy. And I do think it's interesting that TNA didn't have any qualifying matches to get in.
There are so many names we can pick out in terms of filling that fourth spot, so to speak. The other three kind of seem obvious. NXT champion, Mr. NXT stroke TNA in Trick Williams, and then of course Javon Evans. That fourth spot was kind of open, and that's why we kind of had this, this qualifier match, or to get into the team. Obviously, Miles Bourne faced Josh Briggs. For me, I actually thought it was kind of a bit of a no-brainer that Josh Briggs would make the team because of the size and because he brings that element of into the team, whereas obviously Miles Bourne doesn't. He's still very much is an all-rounder, whereas that's what everyone else in the team kind of is, possibly apart from Javon Evans, who's more of a flyer than anything else. But I guess in the grand scheme of things and how things are currently, Josh Briggs is probably the only other person for me that would have made sense. And Miles Bourne kind of would be the second one, only because of what's been going on in NXT over the last few months. Miles Bourne's feud has been on TV for the last two months or so. He recently had an NXT championship match as well. They're definitely trying to push Miles Bourne, which I'm not not against in any way, shape, or form. I just feel as though Josh Briggs just would have added a different element and a much needed element to the team. But again, like I said, I think it just shows what they're trying to do currently with Miles Bourne. How it all plays out, whether it will make a difference to the team or not, we can argue about it. I'm sure they already know what the result is and whether it affects it or not, and does it even matter that it is Miles Bourne and not anyone else? We'll see. On the TNA side, as I mentioned, we've got Mike Santana, we've got X-Division champion Leon Slater, international champion Frankie Kazarian, and of course the franchise player of TNA, that is Moose. To me, that all makes complete sense. My only question is, why did Matt Cardona get involved in that qualifier match and he's not involved in the TNA team? For me, that's the question. So we saw Matt Cardona get involved in that match, costing Josh Briggs. But my question is, why? Why would Matt Cardona get involved and have a say in the match when he has nothing to do with his team and he's not part of the TNA team? I don't understand. Oh, have we lost you? I think I might have lost Gerard. So, as I said, Mike Santana makes complete sense. He's facing Trick Williams at Bound for Glory for the TNA Championship. We'll see what happens with that. We saw conflict between the two of them on Thursday's Impact as well. So, you know, that makes sense. Not NXT, the X Division champion, of course, that is Leon Slater, on a phenomenal run, completely in TNA right now. We'll talk about the match We'll talk about the match that he had, the tag team match that he had with Javon Evans, which was absolutely phenomenal, of course. And of course, then you've got Frankie Kazarian, the stalwart, the man he was there from the beginning. He made the X Division, or was part of, you know, the group that made the X Division and TNA as important as it became and has been, iconic, and now the new international champion, of course. Makes complete sense. And of course, Moose. You can't have a modern day TNA team without the franchise man that is Moose, of course. In my mind, in terms of who wins and who comes out on top, it's tough to say. I think it's tough to say because it can go either way, and both teams kind of, you know, win in some way, shape, or form, depending on who wins. For me, being me, I think a TNA win would make more sense. I think it will show, you know, we've got both the TNA Championship and the Knockouts Championship held by NXT talent, even with Kalani representing Team TNA. You know, we've only seen, in terms of championships changing hands, we've only seen it going from TNA to NXT. So a TNA win would make sense to me, just to kind of give them a little sense of retribution, not the full thing, because until those titles change hands, it's not going to be retribution, not the retribution that they want, of course. But I also see that there's going to be more division within the NXT team. We already saw, you know, Trick Williams try to take the captaincy, calling himself the co-captain. Ricky Saints, of course, had to, you know, correct him and tell him who's boss. But, you know, I'm seeing conflict happening between those two. We mentioned Miles Bourne kind of maybe not living up to the spot that has been given. But again, it might be the match that shows him to be part of this group and kind of proving himself to be a part of this group. I can almost see Miles Bourne almost being the MVP, or having a section within the match to show exactly why he belongs there. I wouldn't be surprised to see that NXT heads, Shawn Michaels, the rest, or maybe seeing reactions, or maybe even thinking that Miles Bourne probably kind of doesn't cut it in the eyes of the fans, of course. So I can see him having some kind of a you know, a nice showing in the match. But I think ultimately, I see Trick Williams, Ricky Saints conflict happening that will cost them the match. And if not that, or as well as that, Matt Cardona getting involved in some way. Do I see someone like Frankie Kazarian, who teamed up with Trick Williams on Impact? Do I see him causing a problem for his team? Maybe momentarily, but I don't think it's going to be anything to, you know, get to the point where the team loses. The other interesting part would be, for me, is where does Joe Hendry fit into all of this? Because there was the whole talk during the show last week on NXT that, you know, where does Joe Hendry, who does Joe Hendry align with? We've seen him on NXT over the last few weeks, matches, appearances, backstage, all of that stuff. We know of, you know, all the talk that's been going on for most of this year about him potentially signing with NXT, moving from TNA. And we saw a little clip of him and Jordan Grace, questioning who they should go with and whatnot, and who their allegiances align with, and all the rest of it. Does then Joe Hendry have a say in the outcome of the match? It's a tough one to call. I don't see why he should. Myself personally, I don't see why you should. But at the same time, if you add him into it, we can make sense of it. Of course, we can definitely make sense of it. But I'll put it out to anyone who's watching. Put it out in the comments. How do you think it should go if Joe Hendry gets involved? Does he show allegiance to TNA or NXT? What does it mean if he shows allegiance to NXT? What does it mean? And it kind of moves me on to, the tag team match. Mainly because, of course, all of Joe Hendry's recent appearances on NXT have been involved with Dark State. The matches, the backstage, all Dark State. There was something he said a couple of weeks ago. If you can't beat them, join them. Are we kind of throwing out red herrings here? Are we trying to, show what's going to happen with that match? Could he get involved in that match and have a say in whether he's with NXT or TNA? I think we've got Gerard. Bear with me 1 minute. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Very sorry.
It's all good, my friend. It's all good. It's all good.
Tech issues are crazy.
Oh, it happens all the time. It happens to me all the time. Jeez, I'm surprised it's you. It's surprised it's you and not me today.
Yeah,
trust me. So I was just talking to the people about the men's team and Joe Hendry specifically. Let me go back a little bit. But I was talking about the possibilities of the outcome of these matches. I was saying that I personally think that it would be best for Team TNA to win, in order to get just a step closer to their retribution. I'm saying the retribution is going to be the titles coming back to TNA, all of that, possibly Bound for Glory, Mike Santana beats Trick Williams. In your mind, who do you think should win, and how do you think that will happen?
Well, speaking specifically about the men's match, I do think Team TNA is going to win that. I think they actually have the stronger team. Yes, you've got Ricky Saints as the NXT champion, but I think in this TNA NXT war, he's in there now by default because he's the champion. He really hadn't been involved in the war before. And the week before, right before the No Mercy pay-per-view or PLE, him and Oba were standing there with the title while everybody else is fighting over supremacy. So I don't see him being Ricky Starks as a major threat. Trick Williams, Trick is going to fight TNA. He's been fighting TNA the whole time. So that makes sense. Javon Evans is going to be amazing, no doubt about it. I think you have two weak links on here. It's just wild to say. Miles Bourne definitely is the weak link on that team. And then I don't think that Ricky Starks is as committed to the supremacy of NXT as a brand. Not that he's pro TNA. I just don't think he's pro this showdown at all. He's more interested in just holding the championship versus being the flag bearer for NXT. So I think that's going to come into play. I think TNA is definitely going to, and I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Hendry in some way has a hand in helping to move this in the direction of TNA. I think it's interesting that the referees for both the men's and the women's events are primarily known for their time in TNA. I think that speaks volumes. So certainly on the men's side, and in terms of how this comes, I think it does come down to Mike Santana and Trick Williams, with Mike Santana getting the pin on Trick Williams, allowing TNA to win. And that's going to be kind of a good bridge to lead us into Bound for Glory. Because if he pins him there, could he actually pin him and take the championship in a few days? I think that's going to be the cursor for that. Now, with that said, I think we're going to get an amazing moment involving Leon Slater and Javon Evans. That's going to be great. Miles Bourne, I just think Miles Bourne is kind of he's the odd man out on this one. Now he could surprise some people, with an elimination or two, but I don't know that he's going to be a major factor in this one. And plus, I think there's going to be dissension between Ricky Saints and Trick Williams, because at this point, Trick's not getting along with anybody, and Trick still has eyes on the NXT championship. So yeah, I think it's going to end up with TNA winning the men's Survivor Series style match.
I agree with you completely. I was saying that I feel as though the way it's gonna all kind of play out is the dissension between Saints and Williams is gonna have it's gonna have its way within the finish. In terms of Miles Bourne, I feel as though we're in a space where NXT are trying to show us Miles Bourne.
Yes,
and I feel as though there will be a moment within the match that will show us why he is there. It's almost like him proving that he's there, or even NXT themselves proving as to why he's there.
Right.
Whether he has any kind of way in the finish, I very much doubt that. But I think we will see some level of Miles Bourne proving himself to us. And yeah, I think the end result has to be TNA winning.
Yeah.
In terms of Joe Hendry, I'm still kind of stuck here because it would make sense that he shows allegiance to TNA. But at the same time, based on some of the stuff that he's been saying over the last few weeks and all the rest of it, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not necessarily becomes or straight up Team NXT or shows his allegiance to NXT, but that he'll be in the middle of the conflict. And I think that would then still carry on in terms of, is he still TNA? I don't think we'll have an answer by the end of the match. I think that just plays out a little bit better in terms of story, in terms of moving things forward, and stuff like that. And I was even saying as a possibility, does he also, probably not because it's two different matches, but does he also somehow get involved in the Dark State Hardy's match? Because all of his recent stuff has been with Dark State. And of course we saw the promo backstage, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, where he was like, if I can't beat them, join them. And he was kind of like, cogs turning in the head. So, and of course we also know of all the rumors of him eventually signing to NXT and, all of that kind of stuff. So could that all play out in that match, in the main match, or the tag team match? It's difficult to say. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think we're going to get. I think we're definitely going to get an entertaining match from the men's side. And I also question how and when Matt Cardona is involved, because as I was asking the question just before you disappeared, is with Matt Cardona getting involved in that qualifier with Miles Bourne and Josh Briggs, but then wasn't part of the TNA team. I'm asking the question, what was the point?
Yeah, I'm actually very surprised that of all people, Matt Cardona is not on Team TNA. That's very, very surprising to me, given, star power, given obviously former connections to all things WWE. It would kind of be like a cool secret weapon for TNA to have. At the same time, in terms of what it could mean, perhaps it means that somewhere Matt Cardona may have secretly sided and signed perhaps with NXT. And so that could explain why he got himself involved in that match last week. So there are lots of very interesting irons in the fire here that I would love to see play out. But it just seems to me like we're too close to Matt Cardona finally being back under the WWE umbrella in some way. And if that happens to be a secret part of NXT or turning on TNA or what have you, so be it.
That would make for interesting viewing indeed. Oh, that would be interesting if he was the one that actually cost Team TNA and is part
Yeah,
of Team NXT. And I
it'd be
think as
wild.
well, I mean, regardless of what actually happens, I think the one thing that we definitely need to now see is Josh Briggs confront Matt Cardona in some way. Them having a
Yes.
match at
Yes.
some point somewhere down the line, and maybe it could have happened on Impact on Thursday, but we know it's pre-taped and whatnot, and I'm sure it was
Right.
taped before before last week's episode of NXT, so we wouldn't have had that player on there. But I think maybe this Thursday or maybe tonight on NXT we'll get some kind of clash between Cardona and Briggs, which will make a decent match. I think it would be an entertaining match. But I think as well,
Yeah.
so many questions as to who's with who and who's going to align with who and blah, blah, blah. And that also then leads me on to the women's match.
Yes.
Because, of course, the new TNA Knockouts World Champion is Kalani Jordan. Kalani, of course, contracted to NXT. She is not hiding the fact that she's contracted to NXT, but is aligning herself with TNA. But it's not in a way of, oh, I don't want to be NXT. I don't, I have nothing to do with NXT. It is simply because she holds that championship and wants to wave the flag of the championship that she's holding and pledge her allegiance to the championship more so than the brand. Do you feel as though that this conflict will play out in any other way? Will she make an assured decision, or it will be one over the other and screw the other and anything like that? Do you think that that's going to happen with Kalani in this position that she's in?
I don't think this is going to be one of those, Team TNA till I die kind of things. I do think, to your point, it is trying to do the honorable thing, which is, hey, I'm the TNA world champion. I'm going to represent this brand, and does so. And I think her choices in terms of who should be on that team were all interesting choices, but she seems very much locked into representing Team TNA tonight, which there's a lot to be said for that versus the men's TNA world champion who opted to side with NXT. So I think it'll be interesting. I think, again, we're going to see the character of Kalani Jordan really shine through. She's going to hold true to Team TNA tonight. And I think it'll be a great opportunity to see how well she does leading a brand. We've seen her as the inaugural North American champion, now being a part and now leading the women's division that at one time was universally acknowledged as the best women's division in pro wrestling. That legacy alone is going to be something that I think she's going to be proud to represent tonight.
It makes an interesting reading in terms of the choices for the women's TNA side. On the NXT side, we've got, of course, the NXT Women's Champion, Jacy Jayne. We've also got Lola Vice. We've got double champion, which is Sol Ruka. And then, of course, we've got Jada Parker. Let's talk about this team first of all, actually. So within this group, I think the only choice, actually, no, it's not the only choice. But the one choice that I saw that was kind of like, why her, why not her? Or the one person that people were asking for or questioning why she was missing is Lash Legend. Do we put Lash Legend in over Jada Parker? Do we put Lash Legend in over a Lola Vice? Because we're not putting her over Jacy Jayne or Sol Ruka. That's for sure. But if we put in a Lash Legend, or if we were to put in a Lash Legend, sorry, who do we take out?
It's so funny you say that. This is what we've been talking about at least for the last year in NXT, where on the men's side, we're like, who's the fourth man? And then it was like, well, oh yeah, it's Miles Bourne. Who else could it be? I don't know. On the women's side, the fact that that you can say, no, we're not going to put a Lash Legend in. who was the runner-up in that Evolution Battle Royal won by Stephanie Vicor, the current women's world champion, right? The fact that you can say, oh, no, I understand why she's not in, because you got a Lola Vice, you got a Jada Parker, you got a double champion in Sol Ruka. You could run through the list. You could run through potentially Jordan Grace. You could run through Izzy Dame. You could run through, like, there are you could run through Fallon Henley. I mean, like, there's a bunch of names you could get to before you get to Lash Legend on the women's side. So it just speaks to the depth of the women's division. And to the question, no, there's not anybody that you take out. I mean, we didn't even talk about Zarya. I'd put Zarya in before I put Lash Legend right now. So I think that just speaks to, again, the depth of the women's division right now in NXT. And there's no argument. This is a very strong team. You know, it represents a lot of elements that I think you want to have for the kind of scrappy team that you want to have to represent the best women's division in the business.
And for me as well, it adds to the entertainment factor of the fact that, you know, it's not JC Jane and Fallon Henley, you know, together. Instead, we've got Lola Vice. They've obviously gone against each other for the NXT Women's Championship. There's disdain there in some way. You know, you can argue that there might even be an ulterior motive for Jada Parker, with Sol Ruka part of the group as well.
Yeah.
You know, after having the battles with Lash Legend, it's either JC or Sol Ruka that she's going after for a championship. So we could see, you know, some conflicts there. It adds to the whole element of whether they can work together or not. So that makes the entertainment factor even better. And like you said, you know, the depth of this women's division is crazy. We could choose a second team. We could choose a secondary team that still would have been good enough, that we still would have been happy with. And that'd be Fallon Henley, Lash Legend, Zarya, and then anyone else. You know what I mean? It's one of those types of scenarios which is phenomenal. Let's speak to a little bit more of the controversy with the TNA women's team. Kalani Jordan, of course, representing TNA now as the TNA Knockouts World Champion. She chooses the Inspiration, formerly known as the Iconics, of course, the newly crowned TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions, of course. And the fourth one was Mara Sade. This caused the controversy online. Questions, blah, blah, blah. You know, people were questioning, where's Rosemary? Where's Natasha Steeles? Even a Jordan Grace, possibly. And so many others. In your mind, did you question the Mara Sade? And also, how do you make sense of, for the people out there, how do you make sense of the Mara Sade choice? Oh, I think we've lost.
I missed the last part of it.
I was going to say, how do you make sense of how do you make sense of the Mara Sade choice? And do you think yourself that it could have been someone else?
So the Mara Sade choice actually makes sense to me. And the reason it makes sense to me is because it's her opportunity to get her lick back at NXT for releasing her. That made sense to me. It's the Inspiration that didn't make sense to me. And the reason why the Inspiration didn't make sense, yes, I get that they're your tag team champions, but in my brain, I just think of a ton of other superstars in TNA who would be more, who could do a better job of being scrappy and defending NXT versus, you know, defending TNA versus NXT. And maybe this is a me thing. I've never taken the Inspiration seriously as a tag team. They, to me, are absolute entertainment, and I'm okay with entertainment. But if you are defending a brand, that is not who I would put on the field at all. I think the choice for them is a result of the new champion literally being champion for maybe 48 hours and figuring, okay, what do I do? grab the other champions. Of course. Well, of course, that somewhat makes sense, but I don't. If I'm defending the honor of this brand, there's no way I'm grabbing the inspiration. Not to go against. I mean, I wouldn't put the inspiration against the women of Evolve. Okay, Callie Armstrong would run roughshod through them. Okay, so like I'm just like your people are mad about Mara Sade. No, Mara Sade was hanging with the Hardys. She's proven she's got some extreme to her, but it's the inspiration that's a problem for me. Rosemary, Havoc, Li Ying Lee. Like there's all of these people, Tasha Steeles, golly, there's a ton of people that you could grab besides the inspiration. I would have even taken the Elegance brand over the inspiration.
Right.
But the inspiration? What? So people are mad at the wrong thing. I'm not mad at Mara Sade. I like her. I think she has never had the opportunity to really show her true ability. Here's somebody who could have left pro wrestling after NXT. She had the goods to go do other things. She chose to stay in pro wrestling and now ends up in this space where she gets, and think about this. Perhaps no one is more qualified on the TNA roster than Mara Sade to be able to tell them the ins and outs of the current NXT team. So that's why she's a brilliant choice. People talking about, no, you got your focus wrong. Mara Sade is not the issue. She's the secret weapon. She can tell you all about Jada Parker. She's trained with Jada Parker, right? She's trained with Sol Ruka. She can tell you about them. She can tell you the hits and misses and where you go after. But between her and Kalani, you've got the NXT team on lock. Now you need some muscle to go behind the brains that they have. And the inspiration doesn't do that at all.
I believe I agree with you completely there. You know, as we said, you know, it could have easily been Tasha Steeles. We've seen her scrap. Even Alicia Edwards even would make a lot of sense. You know, she's all about the brand. Of course, the system being, you know, with Moose in the system as well, all the rest of it. There are so many others that would represent TNA. But in the way of seeing things from outside of it being brand versus brand, and probably on a more backstage, you know, or head office level, why do you think it is these former WWE NXT stars and not your more, you know, grounded in TNA females, TNA knockouts representing the team?
That's a great question. I think some of that has to do with just right now who's hot in TNA. The way, like for instance, if it wasn't them, it would have been an Indy Hartwell, who's the number one contender for the women's championship, right? So it's that type of thing. It couldn't have been a Tessa Blanchard, right? And I keep telling you guys, I know Mex keeps saying it's going to happen. It's not going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Because in terms of pedigree, she would have been the one to put on this team. But you know good and well, the Performance Center is going to be loud and proud about Tessa Blanchard. So here's your other challenge. You would have had a Masha Slamovich in there, but with the issues that Masha Slamovich is dealing with, you can't do it. So this is also a function of having to factor in the other factors that are going on right now. So a Masha Slamovich and a Tessa Blanchard completely changes this team. If you put them in the place of the Iconics or the Inspiration, we're dealing with a different team right now, a much different team. But you can't do that right now. You can't do that. So I think it's more of a function of who's currently hot in TNA versus these people all being ex-WWE folks. Because personally, again, Li Ying Lee, Li Ying Lee, who was the new #1 contender for the women's championship in that finals against Kalani Jordan. Makes sense. She would have been there, and she knows a lot about what's happening in NXT. The part of your other issue when it comes to TNA and the Knockouts division specifically is a lot of who's currently there are former members of the WWE. You can't control that, right? So, you know, that I think there's that, but that's why we have the team looking the way that it currently does.
Yeah, for sure. The other part of the whole Lash Legend debate was that, you know, for one, Mara Sade is in Team TNA, and people were wanting to see some kind of metaphor clash with Mara Sade, Lash Legend, and what that would look like. Do you think, though, that there would be enough? Would that have played a factor in the decision making in the office in terms of who was going to be on the other side of it? Do you think they considered that possibility of those two clashing?
That was a possibility. I just don't know if it was a necessity. And I think that's because this is where we get to have fun. Because with the split between Lash and Mara, I think many automatically assumed Lash Legend to the stratosphere. Mara Sade, we're just glad she has a job, right? What's actually happened has been the opposite. Mara ends up with the Hardys, ends up in some high-profile spots in TNA. Lash Legend can't seem to get her stride and get her momentum. Her biggest moment of the year happened at Evolution. She's not been able to capitalize on it. And we are now, get this, 3 months removed from Evolution. So Stephanie Vicor is the world champion, but Lash Legend hasn't had a title opportunity and can't get involved in this. So there wasn't money at this point in a potential Lash Mara clash right now. If Lash had been stronger on things, then that would be interesting to see. But right now, no, it doesn't. I think fans might want to see it just for the sake of a metaphor clash. But we never saw an issue between those two anyway. Nobody ever sat back and said, who's the greater member of Metaphor? I think it was a foregone conclusion that it was Lash. So there wasn't any sort of clash there. So yeah, that's why I don't think that became an issue of a must-see situation on these two teams.
For sure. In terms of the outcome, the prediction for the match, what do you feel is going to happen? What do you feel is best if it is two different things?
I think much like you mentioned with the Miles Bourne situation on the men's team, I think on the women's side, this is going to be the coming out party for Mara Sade. This is her opportunity to prove, hey, NXT, you got it wrong by letting me go, and I'm going to show you. With that said, I certainly think that her and Kaylani are going to be the bright spots. Let's remember, for all the things that people are talking about, we potentially get to see Kaylani and Sol Ruka run it back one more time.
Oh, yes, please.
And guys, that's where the money is. That is where the money. I think Jada Parker is going to have her way with the inspiration. Hypnotics for days. Them poor girls aren't going to be able to handle that. Because the problem right now that you have on the TNA team is you don't have any muscle. You don't have any power on that team. The power certainly lies with Jada Parker on the NXT side. I certainly think the NXT side will win this. I do think, though, that Jordan Grace is somebody we need to watch. Yes, she's currently NXT, but I don't know if her allegiance to TNA is something that has gone out of the window because it hasn't been tested until right now. And if I recall, I don't recall seeing her in the brawls that have happened between the two brands because she's been so caught up with what's been going on with Blake Monroe. So I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Jordan Grace side with TNA on this one. Whether that will be enough, I don't know, because on paper, this is a clear wipeout where Team NXT should win this. I do think that the X factor in this is Jordynne Grace.
I mean, I see this match more so than the men's one being an opportunity to start and continue certain feuds.
Sure.
I think that's for me. I think that's what's going to be the main thing for this for the women's match. Is either continuing feuds, and whether that be more than likely Lola Vice and JC Jane. That's the only one that can continue anyway. But then maybe the start of something. So, Kalani might find out who her next opponent's going to be. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or they'll make themselves known, or maybe after the Indy Hartwell thing, of course. Then you could have the possibility of even the Inspiration versus Sol Ruka and Zarya. Mm-hmm. They're currently, kind of trying to go after the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, but the Knockout Championships are there, there to be won too.
Yeah,
we could see that happen. We could even see Blake Monroe get involved.
We could
in some way with Jordynne Grace being a part of the match as well. Lash Legend is still a possibility, not because of Mara Sade, but because of all the scraps that she's been having with Jada Parker, of course. She could get involved too. So I think it's going to go that way a little bit more than it just being the straight match and the teams versus the teams. But I think that's what we're going to see with the men's matches. It's going to be more about the NXT versus TNA. We'll see some disdain. We'll see some conflict between teams or within each team and all the rest of it. But I think the women's one is going to be the one that's probably going to create more of a melee and a madness than the men's one. And I'm absolutely here for it because, as we've said already, with both the Knockouts division and the NXT Women's division, so many people could get involved. So many people could have been in the match. And all that, and I think we may see that play out in some way, shape, or form in the match. Moving away from those matches, let's look at Dark State versus the Hardys. Simple question: who walks away with all the gold?
Last week I was under the impression that it would be the Hardys until I realized it was Dark State. And then I started to wonder how the numbers game will play with this. I'm very torn. This is a tough one. This is much tougher than I thought because Dark State has been very difficult to beat. They are the young guns. They've got the numbers advantage. They know how to, just do things from a psychological perspective. And they have the intimidation factor. I mean, they've beaten the very best in NXT multiple times. So I think this will be a great, great test. The other side is it ever safe to bet against the Hardys? And I think right now you can't. I know there are those who will say, well, it's basically the young guns versus the old veterans. But the Hardys don't fight like old veterans. They figured out how they still fight with reckless abandon. They've made some adjustments in terms of what they do, but Jeff Hardy's still Jeff Hardy. Matt Hardy's still Matt Hardy. These guys are nuts, And so for them to get the opportunity to win the one set of tag titles they have not won, the NXT tag team titles, I'm an NXT guy through and through, but I gotta see the Hardys as the NXT tag team champions. It's just right. Though, obviously, if Dark State does this, it would be pure pandemonium. So it's hard. It's very, very hard. I'm gonna give the Hardys the edge, but I think Dark State could very well do it. They could do it.
And there's a compelling argument on both sides, as you said, with the Hardys, holding NXT championships, it's kind of adding to their legacy, and there's nothing wrong with that part and all that good stuff. But then as well, you've got the match with them at Bound for Glory against Team 3D. The tag team championships are not on the line. I don't think they are anyway. I don't think they are. I'm sure they're not.
No, I don't think they are. Yeah.
It's just about supremacy and legacy.
Time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the tag team championships don't need to be there. So
Right.
they don't need to be champions in order to, you know what I mean? Whereas in some other matches that we're seeing on the card, we know that whoever's defending the championship also has another defense down the line. So it's almost like foregone conclusion that they're winning that match somehow, in some way, or no contest possibly. Whereas this match doesn't have to be there. We've seen Dark State invade TNA a couple of times with no real answer as to why.
Yes.
So if they then win the tag team championships, they can go back and say, we told you. All the rest of it, and brag about it, do what they got to do, and beat Dark State. And it enforces what Dark State are about. Them making opportunities for themselves and taking it by the neck.
Yeah.
So personally, there's a complete argument for both sides. We can make sense of either team winning, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
On a personal level, I would actually rather see Dark State win.
I had a very interesting thought. And that is the other two members of Dark State could be the ones to fight tonight. This way, all four members of Dark State have a championship.
Oh, no, we actually know that the tag team champ, the two guys that are in the match, it is. That would have been
that would be nuts.
Oh, that
would be nuts.
Crazy.
Just the photos on that alone would be crazy.
That would have been crazy.
It would go really hard.
That's a missed opportunity. That is right there.
Well, and here's the other thing. What's stopping them from gifting the titles to the other two? True. They're all part of Dark State. It's not impossible.
Yeah, Dark State are winning. Dark State need to win for that reason alone.
It's
for that reason alone. Wow.
We never got to see all four members of the Undisputed Era with two sets of tag titles. Like the level of history here would be incredible.
And what a statement it would be just to say that they beat the Hardy Boys. Just that alone. Yeah. Just that alone is a statement. I would definitely rather see Dark State win than the Hardys. And it's not because the Hardys have done so much and blah, blah, blah. I just think just given the positions that they're both in, regardless of histories and blah, 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 but just given the years that they've had, given what we're expecting or what could happen from either team winning, I think Dark State just makes that little bit more sense to me than the Hardys. But at the same time, I would not be upset if the Hardys do come out with both titles. They came very close before. You know, they've fought against Fraxium a couple of times. You know what I mean? And
I've got an update. So apparently, at Bound for Glory, the tag title match is a tag title match.
Oh, it is.
It's a tables match for the tag titles. That's not to say that can't change if the Hardys lose.
True. Yeah, of course. But then if you've advertised it as a tag team match, you can't then...
Oh, it'll still be... Here's the thing. It'll still be a tag match. It'll still be a tables match. It just wouldn't be for the tag titles.
Yeah, I think, you can take the titles out of it. You can easily take the titles out of it.
Because it doesn't need the titles.
It doesn't need the title at all. That's what, exactly. It doesn't need the titles. So it's still a possibility. My God. Wow. The possibilities are endless. But yeah, I think that one's going to be very, very interesting. Obviously, you know, the other two members of Dark State are apparently banned from ringside. But, you know, that's never stopped anyone in the past. You know, there's ways and means, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And whatnot. So it could play out. Some other people could get involved. I don't know who, but, you know, it's TNA, NXT. Something else could happen. I did mention Joe Hendry before. Probably not because he's going to, you know, I doubt he'll be involved in 2 matches. But, you know, it could be someone else. Who knows? Imagine Bully Ray comes out and costs the Hardys. Not impossible. So that one's going to be interesting. The other title match that we know of course, I got my prediction right, so I'm going to brag about it. You guys all thought, you know what? No, it doesn't make sense. But I was like, no, trust me, it's going to happen. And then I saw Mustafa come out. I was like, I almost messaged you guys like, I told you. I was like, I don't know if you're watching, so I don't want to give any spoilers.
Yeah. Oh,
so I had to stay quiet. I had to stay calm.
Exciting.
I was shouting and jumping up in my room.
Yes. Yes.
But it is actually happening. Mustafa Ali, after 2 years
Mm-hmm.
of a promised North American Championship match, 2 years to the
Crazy.
day.
Yeah.
You know, he's finally getting a match for the NXT North American Championship against Ethan Page. And as I said, you know, the whole thing of Ethan Page's position, you know, kind of being a patriot for Canada and all of those things. And then, you know, with Ali doing his whole candidate political spin or esque, you know, persona, it just made sense to me that would happen. And I'm glad it's happening. And also as well, I kind of feel as though I know the outcome of the match. You know, with Ethan Page apparently, you know, still having to defend the NXT North American Championship against AAA's champion as well.
Leo Del Wagner Jr.
Wagner Jr. That's the guy.
Yeah.
You know, that could still, you know, I think that's going to play a big hand in the outcome of this match. And I think Ethan Page is going to go away as the champion. But in your mind, do you feel as though this match could lead to something more, even if Page ends up winning?
So I'm of the mindset that there's this little line that has been on the bottom of pretty much every pro wrestling card since pro wrestling has existed. And it says card subject to change. And I'm here to tell you that, first of all, I was surprised. I was very pleasantly surprised to see Mustafa Ali show up last week. Then to see them not shy away from the story, to tell the story. Listen, I have maintained the WWE are the greatest storytellers in the world, bar none. This story writes itself. We right the wrong, and in the process, TNA finally gets to win a WWE branded championship. Mustafa Ali tonight becomes the NXT North American champion. Clock it. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's not enough that you have this this showdown that's happening tonight. It's not enough that you do that, but it's also going up against Title Tuesday in AEW. Now, truth be told, most of us don't need a Title Tuesday for us to be invested in this, right? We've been waiting for this for a long time. From where I sit, this is bigger than Halloween Havoc coming up in the next couple of weeks. It's bigger than No Mercy. This is the one we've been waiting for. You need moments that are going to be wow, aha moments. You upset the whole world with Mustafa Ali winning the North American Championship. And then let it spill over into AAA. AAA has worked with TNA. Like, these kinds of things happen all the time. I'm telling you tonight, if there's we already know one title is going to change hands, the tag team titles, but something's got to happen for TNA to get a big lick back. I think they're going to get the lick back in the women's match. No, I'm sorry. In the men's match. It's going to happen in the men's match, and it's absolutely going to happen with the North American Championship. Mustafa Ali, and I'm telling you, I don't care what, and I know people have been talking back and forth about this counter programming and all the things, et cetera, et cetera. Think about what they did last year for counter programming against Title Tuesday. They brought out John Cena. They brought out Cody Rhodes. They brought out The Undertaker. They brought out all these guys. What's going to top that this year? Mustafa Ali winning the North American Championship. I'm telling you guys, mark this moment. It's going to be great. We're all going to cheer. It's going to be phenomenal. TNA is going to get themselves a good win. And then all the other stuff when it comes to AAA and everything, that's the least of the worries. Matter of fact, you could turn it to a triple threat match in AAA and bring all three of them there, and you've missed nothing. Now you just add Mustafa Ali to the matchup. But I'm telling you, tonight, Mustafa Ali, 2 years in the making, we right the wrong, and he becomes the North American champion.
You've just spoken to my dreams in every way, shape, and form. And as some of you might know, it was probably obvious last week. I'm a massive Mustafa Ali fan, massive fan.
Yeah.
One of my absolute favorites in the game right now. So underutilized.
Yes.
In so many ways. For that to happen, and then we get a triple threat. For me, that makes complete sense. That was going to be a question I was going to ask. Is like, and this is why I said, does it then carry on regardless of the outcome of the match? Whoever wins, whoever loses, you know what I mean? I'm thinking the best thing to do is to have a triple threat match with those three guys involved, whoever's holding the championship, whoever isn't, and let them do their thing, because that is going to work. Yeah. The only other thing I was going to say that probably would stop that from happening is obviously the last time Ragnar Jr. and Ethan Page met was again in a multi-person match. I believe it was a triple threat as well, actually. So it kind of just makes a little bit more sense for them to have the one-on-one. But at the same time, as a fan of wrestling, I want to see that triple threat.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to see that triple threat. And Mustafa Ali getting his own personal retribution while again giving TNA another step to their retribution. Him winning that North American Championship is the biggest reason why I wanted to see this match happen.
Yes.
Because I feel for me, that is just the injustice, right? The wrong that's going to be righted with Mustafa Ali getting that championship. And it would just look amazing as a visual, the aesthetic, given the gimmick, given everything that Ethan Page has been talking about and all of that. For Ali to be walking out through the TNA curtain down the aisle with all the four with the North American Championship.
It's just right.
Oh,
it's just
right.
I say this too, to your point. Mustafa Ali has been just in the space of missed opportunities, whether it was this moment from 2 years ago, or let's go all the way back to 2019. When this man should have been the WWE champion, and somehow he gets injured and he gets out. Kofi Mania begins, and we get a whole run for Kofi Kingston. That doesn't happen if there's not an injury to Mustafa Ali. So this is real. You could argue it's 7 years in the making, 6 or 7 years in the making for this to be made right for Mustafa Ali. And I think all of that comes to a head tonight. And I think this man finally gets what he deserves, and that is the NXT North American Championship. And I think it's a moment. Talk about a moment. It's a moment that'll have the wrestling world talking. And both TNA and NXT have been doing a great job of that lately. Nobody will be thinking about Title Tuesday if Mustafa Ali finishes his story tonight.
That would be phenomenal. That would be phenomenal. And I also think as well, I can't remember if it happened, I believe it was after his injury, which kind of set off the whole Kofi Mania thing. There was talk of, I believe it was Money in the Bank, where he was set to win, and it was a last-minute change just before they went out for the match, where they decided
and they put Brock Lesnar in. Yeah. So I mean, all of these missed opportunities for Mustafa Ali, where he's been pulled and he's been yanked. Give this man his just dessert tonight.
Please, it would make so much. It would make so much sense.
Absolutely,
it would make so much sense.
Absolutely.
Whoo, yeah, that one needs to happen. That one needs to happen. I mean, I knew. So let's talk about this whole counter production and whatever else programming thing. I knew there was something that was happening. I had no idea what it was. That tells you
that speaks volumes.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, no one else is talking about it. Yes, we're talking about the counter programming thing, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't necessarily get it, if I'm honest. I get it, but I don't see the purpose and why we have to do it and why it makes sense, because both sides do their thing. They're not even close enough in terms of a business. Obviously we know WWE is so much higher in terms of recognition and blah blah blah. AEW doesn't have to counter it or doesn't have to necessarily, fight it or whatever else. And I don't understand why WWE feel the need to make AEW look smaller when they're already smaller. And it's pointless bullying, basically. It's the only way to put it. But with that being said, in a way, we're the ones that are benefiting from it, because stuff like this doesn't happen unless, unless this is all going on. I think the other side of the coin, AEW having their title Tuesday, I'm not even sure what's going on, but I have seen the fact that Santos Escobar, his contract is now over with the WWE. And they're saying, of course, because it's a contract ending and not a release and blah, blah, there's none of this 90 days, there's no compete, blah, blah, blah. He can show up absolutely anywhere as of this morning, as of midnight this morning. And people are saying that more than likely he will turn up in AEW, or it would be a great opportunity for them to use that, in terms of getting eyes on their show, or people talking about their show more than Showdown. I mean, let's keep with the AEW thing as well. This past Wednesday on Dynamite, they were celebrating 6 years of Dynamite, of course.
Yes.
That's a big thing. That's a major thing. Some great matches, some great action from AEW. The one thing I want to talk about is, of course, the challenge set and accepted by the Hurt Syndicate to the Demand, Ricochet, and the Gates of Agony. They are going to have a street fight. We know that the Demand have the upper hand over the Hurt Syndicate. Even, MVP had to apologize to Lashley and Shelton and, be honest about his mishap in terms of being, the one that took the pin. Now they want a street fight. They want to fight it out. Do you feel as though this will be the conclusion to the feud, or will this be the continuation of this feud between the Hurt Syndicate and the Demand?
Oh, it definitely feels like a continuation. I don't think this street fight is the match that ends this. I think there probably will need to be something a bit more violent and final to be able to do that. And I don't know if they end up in Blood and Guts, where they add 2 more people to each of their squads, or if there's some other kind of match that they end up having. But I think this is going to be a fun one for them tonight. I'm glad that they're getting to do this, of course, in the ever famous Daly's place. It's a great look. And here again is a scenario where Ricochet and the Gates of Agony have been able to really benefit from this. Their stock has risen. They are not just viewed as just random people anymore. They have a primary spot on the flagship show weekly for AEW. That's a big win. And here's what I love. I love seeing Black talent on AEW in prominent positions whose names aren't Shane Strickland, right? Like no knock to Swerve, but it seemed as though Swerve wanted to be the only one. But I love the fact that there are multiple people, multiple names. I mean, you can talk about all that's happening with Kevin Knight and the Jet Setters, and there, and of course on the women's side, Mercedes Moné, and so it's a great space, for Black talent right now. And I think that this 6-man tag match tonight is going to be special. Street fight. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be fun, and it's something that's worth either switching the channel, or, of course, good old DVR, and you go ahead and watch it on demand at some point. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And I think, honestly, I feel like the Demand win this.
Okay.
Because it's got to cause another match. And I think that the Hurt Syndicate has been so dominant that, the idea is going to be, you can't beat us 3 times in a row. And it'll be that third match that'll create the moment where Hurt Syndicate gets their look back.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. I feel as though, in terms of what you said about Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, I remember when Ricochet was looking for people or candidates for his group, and we talked about Leo Rush and Action and Betty.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Swirl, Blake Christian and Lee Johnson.
Yeah.
Them kind of making sense, possibly a top flight. All the younger talent that were very similar and probably watched and were inspired by a Ricochet in their early days and in wanting to become wrestlers and all that kind of stuff. And that being something that made a little bit more sense in terms of a Ricochet faction.
Mm-hmm.
So when we saw the Gates of Agony, who had probably been in about 5 factions in a time they've been together,
right?
We were like, again, this is for them, it kind of felt as though, okay, they're on the hamster wheel, not really moving. They're moving but not moving.
Yeah.
But now I watched their match. I've seen what's been going on the last few weeks. Even from they won the match against the Syndicate. Now I'm thinking, you know what? This one makes sense.
Yeah.
They actually feel as though they're a proper team.
Mm-hmm.
They're going for the tag team championships. They've changed their look a little bit.
Yes.
Looking very, they've now got a similar robe and entrance look to Ricochet with the long coats and looking a bit more royal in how they are. We all know about Khan and his royal background as well.
Yes.
All of that. And I feel as though it's actually making sense. And I didn't think that would happen. So I always love to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
Especially when people come out looking great. So I'm seeing that happening. Even Bryan Danielson on commentary was talking about Khan being one of the most athletic people in AEW. He even said that on commentary and all these things. So it's clear what they're trying to do with this group and with this team. I saw a clip of an interview that the Gates of Agony did, and even they were saying, the same things of kind of feeling now that they're in a much better position, feeling a little bit more confident in their team and in the way their careers are going and what's happening in AEW for them. So I just wanted to make sure I get that in there as well, because I think it's important that we highlight that, them being a part of this team when Ricochet could have been in a different group. The Hurt Syndicate, there was talk of a different group. He could have had other people in the group, people that we thought were better for the group, but yet they've come together and they've made it work. That now leads me on to a different group, a different tag team, who didn't quite get it right and still haven't quite got it right. And I feel as though they're falling back into this space where it's not quite working and I don't know where they're going. That is the Street Profits. We saw the whole thing going back into history. We saw the whole thing with the Pride. Didn't quite work out. Bobby Lashley's then gone. They were still kind of like, swimming around. Then it kind of went well. We found, they found themselves again, became tag team champions. Didn't last too long. But they're still within, of course. They're number one contenders for the tag team championships, of course. But we've seen the possible breakup. Then we've seen them become best friends again. Then we're seeing the Wyatt Sicks playing with their heads, and there's still a way it could go this way or that way, and blah blah blah. In my mind, I'm gonna say out a scenario. You can respond how you want to respond. In my mind, there are 5 people in the Wyatt Sicks. There are 2 in the Street Profits, as well as B-Fab. I feel whether this happens before the match actually takes place or possibly something that has to happen afterwards, I feel as though the Street Profits are going to need to find another 2 people in order to overcome the Wyatt Sicks. Weeks and weeks and weeks ago, we saw, the picture with Carmelo, with Truth. Not to say that it's going to be those 2 specifically, but I feel as though now with what's happening with Carmelo as well, that there may be a space where those two collide, and he's one of them. I don't know who the fourth person is. It might not be Truth because he's gone back to being the fun-loving Truth and the jokey Truth that we know.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel as though the Prophets are going to need to find another two people. It either goes two ways here. They either break up, the White Six have their way, they break up, they do a different thing and whatnot, or they band together but have to find another two people in order, or so at least one other person in order to combat this whole Wyatt Six problem. What is your response to that?
I don't think they're going to find two other people. Not because they won't look, but because this match feels very do or die. Like even their demeanor, their demeanor is just like either we get this done or we done. That's their demeanor, you know. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The last time that they fought the Wyatt Six, they were defending the tag titles and they were overseas. And they lost that match. I believe they were in Saudi. It was on a SmackDown.
I think it was
and
Saudi.
they lost the tag team titles. So here they are again in international soil, fighting these guys for the tag team titles. I'm going to tell you, I think for every possible reason, the Wyatt Six retains the tag titles and we get the breakup that we've been waiting for. I fear that it's going to be a nasty breakup though. Like this is not going to just be, man, we didn't get it done. All right, it's just time for us to part ways. This isn't a backstage segment, you know, that ends up as an extra on the socials. No, this is going to happen in front of all the beautiful people of Perth. And I don't know who ends up being the villain in all this. I don't know. I don't know if we end up with a scenario where one of them ends up not being part of the Wyatt Six, but certainly being influenced by the Wyatt Six. It'll be very clear that they're almost adjacent or they've got kind of this thing on them. And I don't know who it'll be. I don't know if it's Ford. I don't know if it's Dawkins. It could be either of them at this point. There's a part of me that feels like Ford is a natural heel. There's another part of me that feels like Dawkins is the one being influenced. So I don't know. I do know this. The Wyatt Six retains and we get the long-awaited breakup of the Street Profits, and I just hope it's not too late.
My fear is, and it always has been, but at one point it wasn't, but I think it is definitely right now at this moment, is that any breakup would be negative on both of them. We're in a space where, you know, there's too many top guys and blah blah blah, and it's going to be very difficult to find a space to make sense of, or at least highlight one or the other as singles wrestlers. They could coast and it wouldn't be the worst thing. But I feel as though it might last for like almost what happened with the New Day thing as well. We were waiting for something for so long, it happened, and then it wasn't capitalized on straight away. And as much as the New Day are still on our TV every single week, it's still kind of like, yeah, okay, what are they here for, kind of thing, or what's the intention? What's you know, I mean, what are we doing with them? There's compelling arguments for both guys in terms of who turns on who, or who becomes the heel, or who has the chip on their shoulder. You know, we can do the whole Montez Ford being the natural, you know, the one that, you know, everyone expects and will probably feel as if he's been held down and I've been looking after you for so long and blah, blah, blah. Whereas with, you know, Angelo Dawkins, you'll have the chip on your shoulder of you've held me down. I'm better than you think. I'm just as good as you, if not better. All of those things. And Uncle Howdy helped show me that.
Right.
That could go down that way as well. I don't see any of them joining the Wyatt. That wouldn't make any. I don't think you can make sense of that. I don't think you can. regardless of the amount of influence that's been going on. It would just be weird. But for me, I feel it's still a little too early. Or not the right moment, should I say, sorry. Not the right moment to break them up. I don't think it should happen yet or for now. I do feel, though, like I said, it is one of two things. It's either they break up, do their separate thing, or they make some kind of allegiance with someone else in order to combat this whole thing. Out of the two, it's most likely going to be the split. There's been no real, there's been no real hints of them having to find someone else or anything like that. So more than likely, it's the breakup. I'm just scared for what happens if the breakup happens at this moment. We missed an opportunity a couple of years ago, but if they have a strong purpose and a strong, desire to push one of them or both of them as singles wrestlers, then fine, let's go with it. There's also a lot of talk about people moving from NXT to the main roster, so it kind of feels we're in this space where they're making changes to the roster and probably going to push some new people and all that type of thing. So if they're part of that equation, amazing, brilliant. Let's see it happen. I'm just not confident in that happening at this moment in time. That's it for me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
It is. So the last time the two face each other was Cash in Paris, and WYATT SICKS had already won the championships. But that was the first time we really saw conflict between Angelo and Montez, a physical conflict. It was kind of wasn't even really hinted before that, but for some reason, out of nowhere, during that match, it just happened.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, okay. And then obviously we then saw vignettes and interactions and whatnot. So yeah, it makes for interesting reading. It makes for interesting viewing, of course. And I like the fact that it's not a foregone conclusion that they break up. Right. It could be that they win and they'll be like, see, we told you. And then maybe during that run as champions, we see a breakup.
Yeah.
For me, that would be more interesting. That would be a little bit more interesting. But again, we'll see what happens. We just don't know. But that's what makes it interesting too. At the same time,
I agree.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I don't know how B-Fab kind of fits into all of it either.
Yeah.
Disappeared, came back. Yeah. But then you have got a Nikki Cross kind of lurking, so the two ladies are always gonna mix it up, aren't they? So that could happen too. But yeah, we'll see how that one plays out. With all of that said, tell us what's been going on for you, what's coming up. I know there's a whole load of stuff that you can tell us in terms of what's going on with some of the guys that you work with as well.
Indeed. So, of course, next weekend, not this weekend, but a week from this Saturday, is the next big show from Ashe Wrestling. It's called Close to Midnight. Some big things happening there. Over the weekend, Darius Carter successfully defended the Ashe Wrestling Men's Championship against Rayhan Antaeus and Yaya. That was at the Battle Club Pro anniversary. And so now we know that he, being Darius Carter, will defend that championship against Billy Dixon at Close to Midnight. We also found out that Charity King will have her first defense of the Ashe Wrestling Women's Championship against Aaliyah James. That'll take place on October 18th. That's going to be something special. It's going to be a real championship kind of night because we will crown the inaugural Ashe Wrestling Men's Tag Team Champions as the Ugly Gang will take on TME, and that's going to be wild. So that's going down there. Also, the number one contenders match is happening as LeBron Cozone will be taking on Prime Cedric Alexander. That's a dream match. And that's going to that's going to determine the number one contender for the Ashe Wrestling Men's Championship. So a lot of incredible matches happening. Again, that is Ashe Wrestling, October 18th. And big news coming next week. I believe it's the 13th is when it's going to start. Ashe Wrestling debuts its brand new Patreon page, and it'll be there where you'll be able to check out all sorts of great content, all of our previous shows and the new show that'll be taking place on October 18th. So you'll want to sign up to be a part of the Patreon page. Check out Ashe Wrestling for more information. November, October 25th. A big show's happening with the Nightmare Factory. It's going to be a free show that's going to be broadcast all over the world. So you guys will be able to check that out. We'll keep you posted on that. I'll be doing commentary there. And speaking of Nightmare Factory, you can check out some interviews that I've done with some of the campers from Camp 19. And that's available on their Instagram pages as well. Today for Me also launches season 2 of my podcast called Bonafide Conversations. As part of the Bonafide Podcast Network. It's available wherever you are getting your podcasts. I think you guys will really enjoy it. I talked today about what is the internal lie that you've been believing. Trust me, it's a very transparent, a very thought-provoking conversation. So you'll definitely want to check it out. I think it's going to make you think. You'll probably learn some things about me that you did not know. So definitely check that out. That is available right now wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow me for all things connected to Bonafide and me at Bonafide across all of the social spaces.
Brilliant stuff. And of course, you can also find Gerard here every Tuesday with me on a WrstlXtra. 6 p.m. UK time. Work it out wherever you are. And if you don't want to do that, let's make it easy for you. You can find us here on demand whenever you want. Of course, on the Black Wrestling Alliance YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram, Black Wrestling Alliance, of course, for all good things Black Wrestling. Guys, thank you for joining us. And we will see you again next time. Peace and love.